what the future of beer will be. And I have asked some of my friends and colleagues from the brewing scene that same question.
Well, I hope. We already are seeing the change towards cans, so just the packaging of beer has changed a lot. But in terms of styles, I don't know if this is just a United States thing, but beers get a little crazy here of what we add to it. It's a lot. I've seen like Mexican biscotti stouts and, oh my gosh, raspberry lime gozas or all these things. And I think the trend is gonna go back more towards traditional styles. We're never gonna leave our IPAs, that's for sure. That's here to stay. They might get hoppier. We go through stages of more dry hops, more bitterness, and it's kind of just, it's ever changing. And I think it's cyclical. I think we'll come back to where it used to be of just traditional styles.
I think every spirit barrel that you just spoke about will probably have been used. I mean, if we haven't done it, I know there's probably a brewery that has acquired a certain barrel from, you know, a trip to a different country and seen the spirits that are produced in other countries. So I think the creative book is just going to keep opening, and it's pretty limitless, I'd say. Also, the blending potentials of not just single releases of spirits, but how they blend with other spirits.
Yeah, with the number of brewers that we have right now, and just everybody's pushing everybody else to just continue to try new things, I think that we'll, yeah, like you said, in a couple of years we'll have exhausted everything that is probably out there, and probably a handful of other things that probably not even thinking about.
Well, when I started, the American brewing industry was about at its low point in 1980. There were roughly about 45 licensed breweries in America, brewing companies in America. There were a few more breweries than that. Today we've got more than 6,000, I think, and growing still. So I think the whole craft of brewing in America, the individualistic brewers that have come after we started, have made a really dynamic industry in the U.S. And I think the consumer is really wanting to learn more about beer, to explore the wide range of beer styles that the new generation of brewers are brewing. So I think beer is definitely here to stay. There's certainly always going to be big beer, but I think that the pioneering small breweries will continue to thrive in America.
Oh gosh, if I knew that, I'd probably be a millionaire, but what I hope will happen in the next 10 or 15 years is we will see more and more people going from those industrial beers to like the Kolsch and things like that, and growing their palate as they get excited exploring and trying new beers, which means that would just support the craft beer movement more and more by having these people join us in the craft beer revolution.
Well, we're already seeing it. We're seeing people really concentrating on the art of brewing good beer, trying to explore every conceivable aspect of beer. What are the raw materials? How can we juxtapose those raw materials to make a really great taste? And so there's hardly any ingredient that I haven't tasted a beer brewed with, whether that's chanterelles or cannabis or every kind of fruit or vegetable or nut or whatever. And so I think more of the same. People like that. Sour beers, they seem to be a really popular style of beer right now. We have only one brew house, so we're reticent to do Brettanomyces in the same space as we do our other beers because we don't want to contaminate the system. But we do barrel-aged beers, and as soon as we brew a barrel-aged beer, it sells out. It sells immediately. So we know there's a pent-up demand for beers that when you think about when I started in beer, all beers were line priced. You know what I mean by line price? So if a Miller, a Coors, a Bud, or a Schlitz, they were all $2.99 for a six-pack. Then I had the distinction of introducing the most expensive beer that had ever been marketed in America. Samuel Smith Oatmeal Stout, $7.99 a six-pack, which no one had ever heard of, compared to one that was $3.99 that was highly advertised on television. But people like me, and I was the target market, they didn't mind spending $7.99 to get something of quality. And I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see less line price, even with IPA. As creative as we like to think of ourselves as American craft brewers, a lot of them taste very much the same. I write for a magazine, I get IPAs every month. My analysis is if you can taste the hops the following day, they use too damn many hops.
A problem. A problem. A lot of Belgian styles, like double and triple, are very strong in alcohol. And there is a reason for that. You know, after the First World War, we had a law in Belgium. It was forbidden to serve in pubs high alcoholic beverages like Genever. It was forbidden. So the brewers replaced the alcohol of the Genever by strong beers. So this is the country of strong beers, the triples, the doubles, even the quadruples, Duvel, all those types of beer. But now the problem is you cannot drive a car when you drink two of that strong alcoholic beers. So that's a problem. And I think future will be beers with as much as possible taste, but lower in alcohol. And let's start with Saison types. Saison type beers are only 6%. For British, 6% is very, very strong beer because the British ales are maybe 3.5%, 4%. But for us in Belgium, it's low 6. And then we'll see. But I think future will be a lot of taste and less alcohol.
All lagers, all beer styles are based on yeast. You start with ales, you start with lager, you start with spontaneous fermentation. And now you start with this Ibayanus yeast, with the wild lager yeast. It's a whole new beer style, even a whole new family of beer styles. And this is the first one, the original, where you only change the yeast. But I can imagine in the future, people start playing with hops and with malt, that we get different beer styles in that family. So in 10 years, I hope that there are maybe 3 or 4 even beer styles out of this original one.
Well, I think this craft beer movement is very healthy for beer. I just made a trip in America and I give you one example. I was on a industrial spot in Fort Collins, Colorado, where, you know, the new Belgian beer brewery is. But it was surrounded by other breweries. There were 24 breweries for a village or a city of 140,000 people. So it was a Saturday afternoon and I took a bike, of course, from the new Belgian. They all have their bikes. So I was biking around and I see every of those 24 breweries, there was a party going on. You go in, you see all young people drinking beer, tasting beer, and you don't see any one of them drinking Coca-Cola or Pilsner beer. And I think this is the future of beer.
I think it still will be lager beers because I found out right now, I mean, it's a huge hype for everything right now with IPAs and all the special beers, what the Americans do, or like also what the Europeans do right now. But the Europeans, what they do is like the same thing. They just copy the brands from overseas. And we have so many awesome beers already in Europe, you know, and I think we will still have a couple of this or crazy experience flavors, or still like maybe changed a little bit, but I think the ground flavor will be still kind of regular lager beer here in Franconia, because it's even like for us, it's a very hard market to sell your beer in Munich or in Bavaria as a Franconian brewer.
Well, I think at the moment the so-called craft beer revolution is very much alive and transforming what we think about beer. And I think this will be going on for another 10 years or so, at least, meaning that we look into more specialty beers, more different flavors, more invention in that respect. At the same time, traditional beers such as Schlenkerla, but maybe also some of the Trappist brews, or traditional beers like Sahti in Finland, they will also profit from that because people are aware of the diversity. What is going to come after that? That's really going to be the tricky question. Is this a permanent development where people are interested in diversity and quality, or will it return back to the not so nice ways of the 70s and 80s, especially in the United States, where there were mass producers that basically controlled the market? So I think this is going to be a really interesting question. And if you look in the United States, that a lot of industry breweries now purchase craft beer brands, it's not certain that craft beer as such will survive the next 20 years.
In 10 years, I would say you will be able to see a lot more different varieties in China. Not only in big cities, even in the secondary and the third tier cities. You will have a lot more choices, and the beer will be the local brewers. They are creative. They will use the local ingredients, and even there might be local Chinese style beers coming up very soon.
Yeah, I expect brewers in South Africa to start experimenting with a lot of different grains, of which I'm already on it. Different grains, including fruits. People use fruits in beer. I mean, not so many people I've heard of have been using like the local indigenous fruits in the beer. So personally, that's what I'll be doing this year. And I know a friend of mine who's a brewer has already been trying to experiment with things like Amarula and probably even the yeast. We haven't had like the local like yeast captured here. So that's one thing that I'm expecting to see from some local scientists, the guys who are gonna capture the local wild yeast and stuff like that. Because like here we're using a Belgian yeast. I would love to be able to capture a local yeast, a very good one somewhere, somehow, and yeah, something like that. That would define a proper African beer that would be 100% like African and stuff like that, yeah.
Hopefully, I want to see what I am seeing in London, so lots of areas with very small pockets of new breweries that are quite small, so 4, 5, 6 barrel breweries. I want to see that everywhere. I want people to be able to, in their local town in the middle of Scotland, to be able to walk down the road and go and have a pint at their local brewery, and to know their local brewer and to know what goes in their product.